What I would like to do is, instead of introductions, I always rely on LinkedIn for that, but I want to hear about where people are in the workflow. And let's see, Sarge, you're right next to me, so why don't you start and say, what part did you touch?
So in my history in video, I kind of touch everything from glass to glass, from wire to beacons. Previously, I was at Adobe, where we did Flash Media Server, supported Flash Media Server up to the primetime days. So I touched DRM, which you heard a little bit about with Olga earlier. I touched TVE. Pretty much any acronym you can put into a video and ad context, I've touched it.
Okay, and is it fair to say you're on the publisher side? On the
So
loosest
former
sense
former
of this.
Disney, so yes, publisher, but and former Peacock, so publisher, but
I'm,
mostly Adtech.
and I'm saying that because next
Yeah.
I'm going to the other publisher.
I see you trying to do a segue. I'm sorry.
No, of course. Amit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm at Fox now, so definitely publisher side at this point. But I've been only been there for about 4 months, so I would say I've been on the ad tech side of the front quite a bit. Previous company was at Pixelate, which is basically an ad fraud detection and ad quality kind of thing. So looking at it from that point of view as well, and a lot of AI applications are there too.
Okay, excellent. And Inderpreet.
Hey everyone, Inderpreet from the Google Ad Manager team. So I'm primarily focused on our publishers and just helping them really make money and in a scalable, sustainable way across the really fragmented streaming ecosystem. And even most recently working and helping out agencies and big holdcos and DSPs, how to really find and activate this type of inventory to help support my respective publishers' business around the world.
Okay. Shailley.
Shetty Singh, IB Tech Lab. I'm kind of on all sides all the time. So we help publishers, ad tech companies, agencies, brands kind of do better with advertising with more interoperable and scalable systems.
And specs and standards.
Yep. Now wearing that T-shirt today.
No, he's got a great specs T-shirt. Filiz, you, and as a sponsor, thank you very much. Why don't you give us a little bit of introduction as to where you sit in the workflows?
Absolutely. Thanks for the recognition of the sponsorship. So Tavant is an engineering company, so both software engineering and data engineering. So this sort of introductions made my life easy a little bit because we work across the ecosystem from publishers to advertising companies with their technology and in between ad tech, SSP, DSP, and exchanges. Our basically clients on the publisher side, super large sort of, publisher companies, and we help them automate through AI and agentic orchestration too.
Okay, now, what is so interesting about this is that people hear a lot of different stuff about AI, and we're going to talk about some very specific things. In fact, Sarge, we were chatting earlier about one of the areas that you first touched on, and I want to actually first define what we mean by AI in advertising. I'm not necessarily picking on you because I want to hear your use case, but do you want to actually even take a stab at telling us what AI and advertising means to you?
So AI is a loaded term. I think most people, when they hear AI, they think GPTs first and then generative AI.
Right.
But AI first started with ML, machine learning, natural language processing. So for me, coming from the publishing workflow and specifically from the ad platforms at Disney, it meant using a combination of that, because we were talking earlier, every ad server is going to have some machine learning in it to build its algorithms and keep feeding and training its algorithms. You can use some AI workflows or some scene detection, object detection for some ad assets, and that's what we kind of talked about, doing some QA for ad assets. And then something that I don't think anyone's talked about is using machine learning to look at data. I think Barry touched on it earlier in the conversation about taking your CDN data and then taking your beacon data and then feeding that back into your ad server to further train it. So
okay,
we'll get into that later.
Hold that thought, because the thing is that it was one of the topics we did not discuss previously, and I want to go into it. Does anybody else want to add kind of briefly what they think of as AI in advertising?
Sure, I'll go for it. So I think that AI in advertising is all about tools to do things better, right? So you basically are probably talking about the same set of things that you always were doing, whether it is measurement, whether it's delivery, whether it's ad fraud detection, brand safety, whatever it is. But AI is able to help you to do those tasks much better, hopefully cheaper, though that part of it is still being sorted out. So that's the way I look at AI. Basically, a tool that helps various use cases, not a single thing. It really is dependent on the various use cases.
Quite a few.
Yeah, I think a few of you have heard me talk about this in one-on-one conversations, and we all talked about it a little bit, is around AI is more of a fixture, not a feature, as in it's not what someone is actually buying or choosing to use. And Amit, like you said, it's about what are the outcomes that it's going to help you drive. How does it make you get to an answer faster or find problems before they become problems? It's all these things that power all the, really from an Adtech perspective, what we've been doing for over a decade, or even longer, how to do better forecasting, better reporting, understanding what you have and don't have to sell. So obviously my perspective is very publisher focused, on someone who's trying to just reduce the time between getting an RFP from an agency to actually executing and delivering on it, and then having the core teams really have tools that help them find new opportunities or new experiences, or understanding is a certain part of audience being under indexed in their sales strategy. So it's really, when I talk to my publishers, they're all about, these are the business problems I want to solve. I don't care if it's a hamster wheel in the background powering your stuff. It's how's it going to help me do it quicker, faster, and with a lot more signal in the actual data than noise.
Okay, it's funny because we like you guys to kind of be able to mold the conversation, and so because I haven't given it specifics, I let you guys do it. Shailley, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, like Sarge said, like machine learning is not new to Adtech. I think probably a decade that it's been used, and before generative AI came on the scene, like in 23, like there was wide adoption of deep machine learning algorithms to understand patterns, to make decisions on bidding and in data and all the other areas in Adtech. So Adtech, it's not new to Adtech, but generative AI is definitely a new beast. Unfortunately, like it's also going to be disruptive to a lot of the tasks that humans do today are going to get transferred to machines.
Okay.
And will be asked to be done by machines, because generative AI has the capability, a human-like capability, to recognize patterns, to gather things, to put them all together. I think that's the new thing that we are seeing, and how that kind of supports the Adtech supply chain. That's yet to be seen, but that's, I think, where the disruption is going to be.
Right. Now, in fact, Filiz, you've talked to me about how there is a lot of administrative data processing, a lot of things that go on in the background, and this is one of the areas that you work with. So do you want to give us a little bit of background as to what the use cases, and I know you have a lot, but a couple of the things that you touch on that are really important to people who are working within the ad tech stack?
Yeah. Before even I get into the use case for a moment, I just want to sort of like give a couple stats in terms of the, traditionally all of the publishers, especially big ones, right, worked in direct business deals and upfronts and big brands and clients. As the TV became digital with CTV and streaming, now data is available and can act like, and use all these AI and ML models that we were talking about in terms of automation. But if you think of it now, basically, as the, trend is kind of, I think the last sort of stats was 58% of the sort of inventory, video and TV inventory is now programmatic. But still, there's a big portion, right, is still direct IO, which is highly manual, much more manual than, it's not that, programmatic is super sort of, there are opportunities within the programmatic itself as well. But direct business definitely can use a little bit more automation in terms of, for example, the ad servers like Google and, Freeview might have automated some of the pieces. But if you think of, deal setup, it's basically the deal is set up in the CRM and then, replicated in the online management system and then replicated in the ad server menu with ad ops people and a group of, like a large group of ad ops people. And whenever there's an issue within the campaign, the error sort of like troubleshooting is highly manual today as well. So there's no reason why, I guess, those sort of, replicating and getting rid of the mundane, repetitive tasks out of the system and allowing, and we're seeing interest from some of the CTV players in that regard, that, like being able to talk to a ChatGPT application and being able to basically inquire about how the campaign is doing in the natural language is an interest. They want to experiment with it and basically hook up to their knowledge management, whether it's Confluence or whatever else might be, and other sort of like ad server and other CRM system, the Salesforce, whatever the case might be. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that regard for agentic plus the GenAI.
Okay. We won't go too deep. Sarge, do you want to say something?
Yeah, she ripped the Band-Aid off. Basically, you're going to put a lot of people out of their jobs because AI can do some of those ad operational jobs. And you're right, troubleshooting campaigns and campaign management is a very manual process. But with agentic workflows, if they're properly done and your models are properly trained and you take the data, you can train your agents to actually do the same job that a team of people can do. And I apologize to my former colleagues, but you're right, that's kind of where I see the future going.
Sure, before we step all the way forward into agentic workflows, let's like go a little bit further back to just the AI use cases, only because I want to make sure people understand.
What part of AI? Because agentic is AI.
Agentic is definitely AI.
You just meant the machine learning part of it?
Well, what I meant is that we've talked about specific use cases. And for instance, Inderpreet and I talked about data normalization. Okay. And realistically, that's a specific use case. I wouldn't say it was agentic, would you? Or would you say it was? And it's a very important part of the data of the ad workflow.
Yeah, like I said, I think when we look at, like you said, Sarge, machine learning morphing into agentic AI, it's ultimately about the outcomes that it's trying to drive, right? I talked to a lot of my publishers who were coming to us and saying, and giving us feedback on, this is where we want you, Google Ad Manager, to develop tooling to help us be more efficient, because I think honestly, most, and Sarge and team, you all can disagree with me on this, is that a lot of ad ops teams are very lean to start. They're not very well staffed. I've seen a lot of people ask, like, help me do more with the same amount of resources that I have, exactly. Especially as they're distributing content all over the world. A key example I've been really leaning into is around live streaming, live work streams. How do you monetize a live event that's distributed potentially across hundreds of countries around the world on all these different devices with different internet capabilities and all these things? I point to recently with DAZN, one of our partners, with the Club World Cup, where they were, I think it was across nearly every continent in the world, 400 odd countries and dozens of device configurations, and they really leaned into us to try and utilize as much of the platform to help them find issues before they became issues. Like I said earlier, there's this analogy that I've been using around, I don't know, I stumbled upon this in my social media feed around people who are seasonal workers in national forests, who are the fire spotters, who go out there and say, literally in a tower, living up like a hermit. It's pretty interesting, and looking for fires. And they're denoting, where's the wind coming from? Wait, that there's not supposed to be a campsite there. What's going on? And they go and inform the parks rangers, the fire folks, and to go check it out. That's the kind of concept that's being brought into ad operations and ad serving, is to find those issues before it happens and informing the team to say, hey, you may want to go check this out. Right. Or it may be a false positive, but there's still a human in that element to go verify and act on that information.
Provide the context for it, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't be everywhere. You can't have a team everywhere all at once. And if live goes the way that I think it is, and it becomes more part of our how do I say, regular content diet across the world, you're going to need to have tools and solutions that are invisible on the everyday basis, but are there when problems or potentially opportunities come about. And I think that's what a lot of us, at least on the platform, ad serving, server side, ad insertion side, that's what we're building towards.
And I'm going to guess, but you definitely clarify this. When you talk about opportunities, the games get a lot more interesting. You have more ability to sell ads for some piece. It goes into overtime. Is that the kind of opportunity?
Yeah, and then Sarge, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and actually Amit as well,
Amit,
and Fox.
yeah.
But it's not just even about serving more ads, but just how do you actually create an experience that is relevant to the consumer? Because not all of us have the same ad tolerance, right? I'm in the ad space and actually don't like as many ads in my experiences. Sometimes I pay for the privilege of having a reduced ad load. But again, my household and everyone's household might have a different experience tolerance, right? And you think of beyond the US, you think about other regions where advertising and heavy ad loads are the norm. How do you utilize tools to help you make more informed decisions on what is the right setup and also what's the right messaging to give to consumers? If I'm not in the market to buy a car, why am I getting Ford ads or Chevy ads all the time? You know, I keep my cars until they fly apart, but you know, so there's those opportunities there to just be smarter about who do you message, when do you message, and how often do you do it?
Okay. And you know, I think we also talked, there's a number of different areas, and we also talked about brand safety. Amit, do you want to actually?
Sure. So brand safety is something that I've worked on quite a bit, so I'm probably a little passionate about it as well. I used to be at Adtech Lab and worked on that there too. Previous company, absolutely, at Pixelate, we were working on brand safety. And I think that brand safety has kind of come to a much higher level now with all the new tools that we have, right? So even at Pixelate, I saw a big shift in the kind of insights that we could glean in terms of what's in a piece of content, whether it's text content, image, or video, being able to really dig into and understand the nuances of what it means, right? So of course, you have your general categorization of, okay, here are the dangerous categories kind of thing, but you also had sentiment analysis. Is it in the context of news versus propaganda or what have you? All those kind of things are stuff that we can actually now realistically pull out from by using the newer tools that you have. And from a publisher point of view, I don't think I can name, and this is not Pixelate, is a different vendor that we're working with. I don't think I can name them, but there's so much benefit that Fox also has been getting from that front, right? So, and to your point about ad ops teams being very lean, so the tools that we now have allow for these ad ops teams to quickly set up. Okay, this is the kind of audience that might be interested in that has the potential of reaching enough inventory from that we have based on. Okay, are they interested in, I don't know, AI versus, something that's AI and it's safe and it's something else. So the different things that they can write just using GenAI, right? So easier now to set that up than it used to be in the past. So a lot of things that are going on that front, I think.
Mm-hmm. Filiz, did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess both Inder and you touched on sort of, just volume is increasing, right? And that brings also opportunity for more, especially with CTV, right? More advertisers to come into the marketplace and be able to take advantage of the TV. And of course, TV is also, while it's always been a brand sort of awareness, channel, it's becoming also performance-based, right? Like that sort of, funnel is also shrinking together with all of the technological and programmatic enhancements. So I want to go back to, I couldn't get a chance to answer, it's not about necessarily, just reducing the ad ops team, but really expanding, increasing the productivity and transforming their roles, as well as basically, increasing the volume and the monetization of the platforms and the publishers and the whole ecosystem, essentially.
One thing just I'll add on top of that is, I know, Sarge, when you and your team and my team are working together, a lot of the relationship between the ops folks and, let's say, the revenue sales folks is always not just about, hey, just executing on this campaign, making sure it runs, all that. A lot of it also was, well, from a sales perspective, what other things could I offer up to agencies and users, right? There's that positive relationship between the folks who understand what it can be done versus those who are just, making sure things get done. And I always found, and I was actually in technical services, being on the ground, addressing issues, working with ops folks and rev ops and everybody, and the relationship between those two groups was very essential, because you would always find moments of serendipity of saying, oh, I didn't think we could do that. That's awesome. We should be selling that kind of an experience. And when you have AI taking care of a lot of the non-glamorous work, right, of making sure that things don't go on fire, it frees up a lot of folks to have those, like you said, more thoughtful, forward-thinking conversations with the team, and also with the technology teams as well. Especially as as Shailley and team focus on getting better standards, that our technologies outside of the ad server, upstream, downstream, all start talking better with each other. It just frees up everyone's mental capacity to do really innovative things, and kind of you let the tools do their work while the people come up with those inspirational and really revenue driving ideas that they can really bring to market.
Did I hear standards?
You're not wearing your shirt today. There's a spec for that.
Shailley, do you want to give us
only
an
have one of
understanding
those.
about where we're at?
I think where we are at, what I'm hearing and talking to everyone is we have started seeing application of agentic bots or agentic workers into the workflows. Like Amit explained one about doing brand safety, analyzing your content, etc., using LLM-based generative AI, because it understands the language, it can understand a lot of things about the content. And apply it to convert it into taxonomies and brand suitability and it can also understand brand's objective just by reading a brand's webpage and their brand policies. It can then try to match the two, which should be a pretty good. I haven't seen the results myself yet, but Amit would probably better know that, but it should do a pretty good job at that. So there are a couple companies that are doing that. The other thing that I've seen is on the ad operations side, because it's kind of a worker, right? It's like a tireless worker that you have at your disposal for $20 a month that you can keep giving it things to do, and it'll keep doing as long as it has access to the right information. It's going to keep processing that for you. So there's a whole company that's been created to manage ad ops for Amazon's DSP. This is an employee, ex-employee of Amazon DSP, so he knows that system. And he knows the issues that people have had in trying to interact with that system. So he's created a whole company that AI-based, and that will do all your ad operations on Amazon DSP. I'm pretty sure he's going to expand to Google DV at some point. And so you're seeing that kind of productivity kind of applications. I also heard like Google released, I think June or July, that they tried to apply it to determining IVT. It was at an experimental scale, but because generative AI is very capable at recognizing patterns, being able to apply different techniques to the data that's provided, the knowledge that it already has through its training, so it can do all of those things it's like you have access to a team when you have that. The third, or I think the fourth one, is what I'm seeing is in data collaboration. So that's a very new thing, like it's a kind of a September 2025 thing, that leading companies who provide data, like LiveRamp and Optable and others who have taken the lead in providing that, are starting to talk about agents which are kind of autonomous and can put your data together, can put your audiences together, by having access to all your partners' data sources. And they're calling it, like LiveRamp called it, like it's like an MCP server, but they're calling it User Context Protocol or UCP server. Optable, and there's another group of companies that are doing something similar. They've given it a different name. I think they're calling it AdCP or Ads Context Protocols. But they're kind of the same thing. And the use case there was I'll take an example that I talked about yesterday. Like as a brand manager, you could go and say, hey, I've just learned that people who are Taylor Swift fans also buy a lot of cruise tickets. Agent, can you go and find me like all the audiences where I can buy these audiences that are Taylor Swift fans and or are similar lookalike? And it will go and access Experian, LiveRamp, all of these other data sources. And it might take a day, like it'll assemble all that for you, and then it'll process it, and then it'll basically come up, go to these apps, go to these channels, and you will find this audience there. So that's the kind of world, and this agent may be talking to agents at the other end. Like those data providers may have their own agents. So that's the kind of world that we're started to hear about now.
So realistically, how would you have done this previously?
Previously, like I would have told somebody in my team, maybe one person or two people, and they would have logged into some system, downloaded reports from like 10, 12 different systems, and then figured out like, how to combine that data together and put it into some other system and then processed it. And maybe I would have told them something else to do in the middle, and they would have left that job and forgotten for 2 days. And then, so it would have taken that. So that's what I was saying in the beginning. The unfortunate part is that a lot of the AI meeting Adtech is going to cause disruption to human employment. Yeah. Because essentially it's going to do these tasks much faster, tirelessly, 24/7, all the time. So.
Filiz, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, the other, feedback that we're hearing, right? Everybody's expecting that paradigm shift to happen in terms of, creating efficiencies and, removing or reducing at least the manual tasks. Now, everybody's realizing how data is very important as well, right? The major clients, everybody's basically getting their, now data in order. So we talked about, for instance, sports. Sports data, right? Like it's not complete, and it's basically like, in certain cases, 50% of the inventory, on a platform doesn't have a title, doesn't have the team, that kind of stuff. So I see a lot of basically expectation around, okay, we're going to automate a lot of stuff in the next year, but first we need to get our data sort of, the governance, the privacy, and the safety, as well as, the, completion of the metadata. So a lot of efforts around that and committees formed.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, and I was working with IAB team previously on the live standards around the data and just that use case, how you can have data for events that are shared amongst different publishers, say, or going to launch on different platforms, but it'd be the same game but described different ways, or sometimes the teams are missing or some piece of context in the metadata is missing. So it's very important that even as we go to agentic workflows to build that data, we have standards in place that say what exactly should describe the event so that each system knows or has something that's valid and we all agree upon that will describe that event. So as we're sharing data across the systems and across teams and companies, we can all speak to that one specific event or that one specific avail. And it's going to take humans to make that context. So the agents can build it out, but we need to train them properly and provide that context so that the data is true and not missing things.
You just set me up so well for this. So should we really trust these agentic agents?
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
You need to have the right people in place to see, was this output consistent with previous iterations and, looking for anomalies. I think that's what agents are really good at. Like I think you mentioned around pattern detection. I think Shailley, looking for those types of things. But you need people involved who can contextualize, like you said, what this data means and is it actually leading to is enabling me to answer a question or get back to my exec team with like, this is where the strategy needs to go to, and and you're trusting in that source. But like you also said, Sarge, I'll say it a little bit more bluntly, it's more garbage in, garbage out. So how do agentic solutions go in and put proper hygiene on the data sources that you go in? Like you mentioned, Shailley, around whether you're working with a LiveRamp or contextual metadata, they're all coming in different standards and nomenclature. But if you have your own, lack of a better phrase, Webster or Oxford dictionary to put those into a format that makes sense for your business, that's what you want. That's why I always appreciated the standards around like the contextual metadata standards around IAB. Like that's a great start. Now, how do we go about things like scene level detection and, you know, whether you see a baseball with a lowercase b versus uppercase b or it's misspelled, you know, you still need to have people who understand that, yes, it is a baseball, but is it the right scene to utilize some of that data for activation? So
Right.
I think that's where I kind of look at it.
Does anybody else want?
Even like generative creative, right? Like generative AI, that's the talk of the town. Like, you know, you'll be able to create on Sora 2 like 30-second videos, like on the fly. But you also need a standard there. Like, you know, it has to be created in the right resolution. It has to have the right bit frames. It has to have the right size. And if your input to the agent can't provide that, then you're going to get garbage out, like, or not garbage, but something that's not usable.
No, it's garbage.
Distributed.
It's a lot of garbage.
So standards, like we look at, so we're trying to look at that, like what standards would be needed for these different use case based agents to operate, especially where they are required to interoperate between multiple companies. And then the second thing is the form. Like a lot of the standards that we published are just PDF docs. We are trying to move everything to GitHub, so we also need to ensure that these are all machine readable specs going forward, because we know that, you know, first time agent is going to hit the spec, not a human.
Okay. You know, we don't have a huge amount of time. I wanted to see, are there any questions that anybody has in the audience, or I can continue on, but do we have any questions so far? We do not. Oh, we do. We have one question. Great. Okay. If you give me 1 second, we'll actually get you a mic, and that way we can hear you. So.
Hi, my name is Dion. Thanks so much for doing this. This is a very interesting discussion. We're building the monetization proof layer for streaming right now. Similar in spirit to what Google just released recently with regard to AP2, and perhaps you can unpack that for anybody in the audience who may not be familiar with that is the agent, you know, payments protocol for AI transactions.
I'm not entirely clear on the question. The question.
So yeah,
is...
I'm just introducing myself. I'm sorry.
Oh no, no.
Setting it up.
Okay.
Setting it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we notarize ad and playback events with signed usage receipts. You know, turning operational logs into auditable, you know, payable truth, all sideband under sub 20 milliseconds. So here's the question. Google just launched its agent payments protocol to let AI agents transact with verifiable, auditable proof instead of depending on Stripe, right? In the same way, when AI optimizes or serves ads, I'm wondering what's the equivalent of that proof of transaction today? And is there a signed, you know, sub 20 millisecond receipt you'd actually trust for billing, or are we still settling on logs and models?
Okay, so I think this is almost, would you say it's a measurement issue or a payment issue, or how would you, in fact, interpret this, since you are?
Well, an agency won't pay if it cannot be measured, generally speaking. I think it was Natasha from Vivo who brought that up yesterday. But also there's the fact of there's more to paying for an impression than just did someone do something after seeing the ad, right? Is it like brand reputation, brand recognition, exposure, all these things? And I think this goes back into the talk about standards and what is the currency for streaming in the future, right? Like television, it was the GRP. Well, in the age of AI solutions going out there and executing these ad buys, is it still the impression? Is it the click? How do you measure a click on a connected television? Is it a remote thing? So I don't have a clear answer for you on that front. I think really it comes back down to, you know, what is the agency or the brand trying to actually execute on. Is it a brand reach campaign? Is it an activation of some sort of commerce or retail event in streaming? And then what does the publisher and the tools that they offer can actually help provide that execution? And for us as a platform, we'll always rely on open standards to do that. So whether that's MRC denoting what an impression is and what it isn't, whether it's IAB saying that this is a contextual metadata and the right format and how to map it to an audience, we're going to rely on the industry to provide that. We're going to try new things in collaboration with like our publishers, and if they want trying new things. But it's also going to always come down to the standards, because that's the only real scalable way of actually doing this. So it's great, like for the payments side of it, for AI, like that's Google and others trying something new, and then facilitating that conversation and say, how do you make this thing really scalable?
Yeah, I mean, the standard for measurements exists. So IAB, along with the MRC, we create what's called the MMM task force, make measurement work. So that very clearly defines what an impression is and what a click is, and even for the digital streaming CTV, it defines what that is. And then we also have Open Measurement SDK that actually does the measurement on device and collects the raw signals and gives it to the preferred vendor of the advertiser, so the vendor that they trust to process that information, which who are typically audited and certified by MRC. So that's how the payment works in measurement. So.
Yeah, one thing also I've seen is just a lot of focus on joint industry committees, right? The JICs of agencies and broadcasters and connected TV OEMs coming together and say, hey, we all have to work off of a common standard here. Can we as an industry get together and figure that out? I think there's a lot of things people are trying. Nothing has really coalesced yet, because I think there's always a difference between how you measure something from an OEM perspective, a broadcaster, and obviously an agency and a brand as well. So I'm happy that people are trying these new things, and then hopefully, we will have a lot of noise, but then there'll be some signal that rises out of that. I think the question is just the velocity of it, because like you were saying, Filiz, things are just expanding so fast, and you're bringing programmatic into things. Can the industry wait until agreement to capture these new opportunities? And that's an open question.
Now, one of the things that we also discussed was, what kinds of things are you being asked about? So, what are you being asked by your customers, by people who are, maybe leaders in the industry?
I mean, we touched across the life, so plan, activate, measure, reporting, right? Pretty much AI and application of AI across the board in different, stages for sure. But one of the things that we are directly asked by clients most recently is an interesting one. They're like, we have to do, I'm making up a number right now, 20 things in our roadmap. Do you have something that accelerates us, right? So that's an interesting proposition, and that's something at Tavant that we are investing, whether that's basically even software engineering, GenAI-enabled software engineering, now that we are talking about AI, right? We do, fast prototyping to productionalizing stuff, through vibe coding to, fast software engineering to deployment. But what we call is accelerators, essentially, basically, whether that's data engineering, whether that's basically, a piece of software we're going to build, or whether that's an AdOps accelerator in a specific domain that we're building. It's not a product. It's not something we're going to sell.
Right.
But, we're doing the foundation work, the safety and the governance and hooks. It still needs to be customized per publisher, right? But they are very much interested in accelerators, and that's something that we're investing in.
Okay. Sarge, you were in a number of large organizations that probably you answered the same question a number of times from people. Is there one thing that you think that people either don't understand about AI, or that you think that it would be helpful if they understood more so that they had a realistic expectation?
I don't know how to answer that one.
Okay.
There's a lot. First, just understanding what AI is. Like we first started the talk with defining what exactly AI is, and then how the different parts of AI apply to your specific problem.
Right.
I think that's the first thing people need to do is identify, number one, identify your actual problem. Two, identify which tools, even if AI makes sense to resolve that specific issue, because it may not. And then as you brought up, you want to verify. Understanding how to verify or validate what the AI is producing for you, because as we talked about using ML to kind of do numbers crunching, where and some his example of having one person or maybe two people spend 2 days compiling data, and then at the end of the day, you're going to take that data from disparate resources, put into some spreadsheet usually, and then put some type of graph on top of it, so because people are visual learners. So
Yeah.
AI can do all of that, but then you still have to validate that that is the actual right data set and that the model is correct. So
Right.
I think, number one, people, as they're diving into the AI pool, you have to understand, again, what parts of AI are specific to your or can help with your problem, and then you have to know how to validate it.
Okay.
I think that's something that I get asked a good bit is how real it is, right? So people, I think, are still trying to get a handle on is it really here? Is it really being applied, or is it more conceptual, pie in the sky kind of thing? And part of it probably is coming from fear of losing jobs as well. I think that's definitely a big part of it. But the other part is to see is the age here, and I think the answer is that it is here. That's the one thing that I keep saying. Yeah, I'm seeing the application across all
been here.
use cases.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's been here, but it's been kind of machine learning and all that has always been here for a while.
The veil has
Now
been taken down, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now, are there any questions that you have for each other? Because I have one more question, but is there anything that you guys want to ask?
I have less of a question for the panel, but more maybe from the audience of like, where have you seen applications of AI, whether it's in ad serving, ad tech, just like really work well in your individual use cases versus just fallen flat on their face? And that's, by the way, a good thing.
So do you want to do a little
learning
survey of the audience by
Yeah.
having them raise their hands if you want to ask them?
Well,
a
I don't
question?
know. That's why I'm asking the question of like, I'd love to understand. And I asked this because we actually had a group of our media executives on the publisher side share some use cases that they said, this is where I want you, ad manager, to build solutions that are AI driven versus where I don't need AI in here because I have a really great team that is doing that work today, and we have our own models and solutions that we're not looking to rent from a platform. So that's why I'm asking generally if anyone has an example of like something that just worked really well and what maybe didn't work so well.
Okay, that's probably a longer question than we can actually
That's a lunch
go into,
discussion.
because we have lunch is going to be happening in about a minute and a half. So is there any, what I would actually encourage people to do is over lunch, come.
Yeah,
talk
I'd love to hear it.
To interpret. And, the other part of this is that this is just the beginning, right? I mean, we're just starting this. Being able to ask the right questions. One of you said something about talking to a vendor. How do you trust the vendors? You ask them about the results. And I think we're out of time, unfortunately. So we could continue this. We definitely will continue this topic.
I think you should ask for the IAB seal of approval, and Shailley can tell you all about that. So,
Okay.
But hey, great session. Give it up for a
Thank
man
you.
who could have been in New York at Advertising Week, New York, but he's here with us, Shailley Singh from IAB Labs. Yes, give it up. Amit Shetty from Fox. And my new friend Filiz Bahmanpour from Tavant. Again, give it up for Tavant for being such a great sponsor. He's smooth and he's good looking and he's brilliant. He's Inderpreet Sandhu from Google. And the man with a redundant name who I love, Sarge Sargent, who's so smart. Talk to him at lunch. And Nadine Krefetz, your moderator.